this get resolved? And if not, then can the government reopen without the president negotiating with and speaking to Democrats?
Well, good evening. Great to be with you all. We've made clear that we will sit down with anyone, anytime, any place, either here at the Capitol or back in the Oval Office, to reopen the government, to enact a spending bill that actually makes life better for the American people as opposed to hurting them, and that addresses the Republican health care crisis. At the same time, we've also made clear that we will not support a partisan Republican spending bill that continues to gut the health care of everyday Americans. And Senate Democrats, once again, for the fifth time, demonstrated that today we're in lockstep in defense of protecting the health care of the American people and actually trying to reach an agreement that is designed to lift people up to address the cost of living crisis that exists in the United States of America, as opposed to continuing these failed Republican policies that are jamming up working class Americans all across the country.
So when the president says he's talking to Democrats, who's he talking to?
That's a really good question. I asked that question myself when I heard the comments, because he certainly is not talking to members of House Democratic leadership. I spoke to Leader Schumer earlier today. There's no communication between the White House and Senate leadership either. In fact, what we've seen is that Republicans have basically gone radio silent since the Oval Office meeting last Monday. And here in the House, where I'm present, Democrats are on duty, Republicans remain on vacation. It's extraordinary that for the second consecutive week, they've canceled votes because they'd rather shut down the government than actually provide health care to the American people.
Mr. Leader, I'll just say the quiet part out loud. He's not talking to anybody. Those are just words because, Republicans aren't going to move unless he says so on these issues. That's why the Capitol's locked. It was locked last week. It is locked tonight. And the reality is you've offered an opportunity to have a conversation. You say, hey, OK, let's debate what this is. Let's debate the health care challenges that we have. I want you to listen, if you could, to Mr. Johnson's response to your challenge to a House floor debate.
When the poll says that about 13% of the people approve of your messaging, then you make desperate pleas for attention, and that's what Hakeem Jeffries has done. We passed the bill in bipartisan fashion and sent it over to the Senate. The House has done its job. I'm not going to let Hakeem try to pretend for these theatrics. I mean, this is a Chuck Schumer decision. The ball is in the Senate's court now. The House has done this. We don't need to waste time on that nonsense. Those debates have been had. Colleague's a friend. I mean, Hakeem is a friend and a colleague. I respect him, but we all know what he's trying to do there.
So, sir, friendship and all that aside, the reality of it is the polls say 43% of the American people blame Mr. Speaker Johnson and the Republican Party. So you may say 13% don't like what you said, all right, or whatever. The reality of it is he locked the door for a reason, and he's kept the doors locked for a reason. So with that as the backdrop to all of this, what's your message to the American people tonight as you're standing locked out of the Congress, unable to do the people's business for over a week now, and you have this sort of diatribe of noise from Republicans about how the Democrats want to give free health care to illegal immigrants when we know that's not true because that's not what the law will allow. And people are trying to figure out what they're going to do because, hey, next week is payday.
That's right.
And there's no check coming.
Well, fighting to lower the high cost of living and trying to protect the health care of the American people, that's not theatrics. That's actually what we should be doing as members of Congress to make life better for everyday Americans, as opposed to continuing these failed Republican policies and trying to gut the health care of the American people. I'm not sure what Mike Johnson was talking about, and it's not clear that he knew what he was talking about in terms of what he was saying at that particular point in time. The Republicans have enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history. Hospitals, nursing homes, and community-based health clinics all across the country, including in Louisiana and in rural parts of the country, are shutting down because the Republicans have done in their one big ugly bill. We know that as a result of their refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, we've got tens of millions of Americans who are facing dramatically increased premiums, co-pays, and deductibles, including, in some places, a married couple that makes about $88,000 a year currently pays about $8,000 per year in health insurance. By the way, that's already too high. But as a result of Republican refusal to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, their health insurance could triple to $24,000 a year. That's unconscionable here in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Those aren't theatrics. Those are real issues. And Democrats in the House and Democrats in the Senate are continuing to hold the line.
So, Leader Jeffries, just to be clear, you have not spoken to Speaker Johnson about trying to negotiate about ending the shutdown. He has not come to you and has not answered any of your outreach.
No, I mean, what we're experiencing, absolutely, we have not heard from Mike Johnson. I don't think Leader Schumer has heard from Mike Johnson or from John Thune. I certainly haven't heard from John Thune, and we've heard nothing from the White House over the last week. Instead, what we've seen is the classic definition of legislative insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over again by continuing to re-up their partisan Republican spending bill that continues to be defeated and expecting that there are going to be different results. This has now gone on actually for 18 days, making clear to us as Democrats that Republicans actually want to shut the government down. And this is their shutdown. They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
So then, Leader Jeffries, I have to ask them, what is the next move then for Democrats? If Republicans continue to not want to negotiate with you, if they are not answering the outreach, if you will, not taking you up on the debate, what then any leverage do Democrats have? Can you all try to force procedural votes on the floor if they ever gavel back in? What's the next move?
Well, public sentiment is everything, and the voices of the American people. We continue to hold events here in Washington. We'll be holding events all across the country, and we know that millions of people over the next few days and next few weeks are going to receive notices from their insurance companies indicating that because of Republican inaction, their premiums, co-pays, and deductibles are about to skyrocket. This is not a manufactured issue. It's a Republican health care crisis that is unfolding in real time. And I don't believe the American people are going to stand for it. And they know that Democrats are standing on their side.
Just to ask this question a slightly different way, you've got Johnson and Thune and Trump effectively saying to you, listen, pass it clean, and we can negotiate all this out before the end of the year. Is there anything they could do, any guarantee they could give you that would make you comfortable with that negotiation?
Here's the thing. They continue to claim that there's no urgency to dealing with this Affordable Care Act tax credit issue. But the reality is open enrollment starts on November 1st. Notices are going out right now. And by the way, this is the same group of people who enacted massive tax breaks for their billionaire donors related to tax legislation that was going to expire at the end of this year. And somehow they spent 6 months getting this done with urgency because they wanted to stand up for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected, and they made those tax breaks for their billionaire donors permanent. And now they want to lecture America and say there's still time to be able to deal with an issue related to the Affordable Care Act tax credits that actually relates to working-class Americans, middle-class Americans, and everyday Americans. It's crazy to me that they think they can get away with making that argument. The time is now to do what is right for the American people. And I guess the question is Donald Trump serious when he suggests that if the vote went down today, as it did, it failed again, 5th time, Senate Democrats continuing to hold the line, that he's going to extend a line of communication to Democrats on Capitol Hill to try to get some resolution. And we're willing to do that in good faith. We just need partners on the other side of the aisle. They need to get serious.